Flosstube. I decided that I had a little time on my hands today, so I thought I might just do a little, not necessarily a tutorial, but maybe just a video to watch me put a few beads into this adorable Mill Hill pattern. This one is called Autumn Harvest. It's by Mill Hill, and it's a little mallard, so it's MH180206 mallard. And as you can see, I've already done the stitching on it, the cross stitching. So if you've never worked on one of these before, or maybe you want to try beading and you're a little intimidated by it, I just wanted to show you how easy it is. I'm sure that there's other people out there on the internet doing this, but I don't know, I just thought that I would just do a few beads and show you how I do it. So let me get a little bit closer here, and I've never done a tutorial. This is actually also a test run to see how well this tutorial works, because I might show you even kind of how I finish it too. But as you can see, I've done the stitching and I've done some of the beads right here in the mallard's head. So I'm gonna maybe just work on this area right here to show you a little bit about how I do the beading. So let me make sure that's turning out okay. Am I in the screen? Yes, there we go. So you can see right there. Okay, so now the way I do it, I bought some of this, it's beading, it's like beading, what do they call it? I found it at the craft store in the beading section. You can buy like a big 8.5 by 11 sheet of it. It's just this fuzzy, almost feels like velvet or something like that. And this is a case that my phone came in, just a little clear plastic case that I thought, well, that could be useful for something, and this is what I used it for. So I went ahead and cut a piece of this, I can't remember what it's called, sorry. It's just like beading mat, but it's not sticky. If you've watched my son's Flosstube video, his name is Stitchy Bug, and he's made a couple of videos, and he reviews the sticky mat by, oh gosh, what's the name of it? I don't know, I'll put a link to his video, or I'll put it across the screen. Anyhow, I don't know where his mat is at the time, and I have never used it myself, but this is the way I usually do beading, but I think I am going to get me one of those sticky mats, because if you spill your beads, it will protect them from falling all over the floor, so I have to be very careful with it. So when you get Mill Hill kits, I'm going to make sure I'm staying in the screen here. When you get Mill Hill kits, they come with a bag, a couple of bags of beads, and they don't give you a separate bag for each bead. They kind of mix together, 3 or 4 different beads inside a bag. And so one bag had all of these beads, and this other bag has these, which are some of these long ones, which I've never done those before, so that'll be new for me. But it tells you on the instructions, and I can't show you the kit, but I will show you. I mean, I can't show you the pattern, sorry. If you look right here, it just explains to you that the beads that have a little asterisk next to them are ones that come in the same bag. So it's like this, I know that the brilliant green come in a bag with the lilac and the corn, which then you can just use your, it's just pretty obvious which ones those are. So anyway, that's that bag. So then you know kind of how the colors are. So yeah, it's pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory, and it tells you right here that, say for instance, you're going to use the sweet corn bead. You're going to use one strand, or in this case, it actually tells you to use 2 strands for the beading. So you're going to use 2 strands, and you're going to attach it with a half cross stitch. Some of them call for a half cross stitch, and some of them call for a cross stitch, and that just is going to determine whether the bead lays straight up and down or at an angle. So just because of the effect of it, they tell you which to use. So let's get started with one and see. So I'm going to look at the pattern and figure out what we need. Okay, so it says we're going to need the petite ginger, and you know what? That's in this bag, and I already have this bag set out. So why don't we go ahead and find some part of the pattern that uses these beads. Now I believe right above the beak, yes, sweet corn. Okay, so right above the beak, right there, we're going to use sweet corn, and we're going to use yellow thread, 2 strands, and we're going to do a half cross stitch. It tells you right there how many strands to use. So let's go ahead and do that. These beading needles are very, very thin and very, very sharp, so you have to be careful with them. You probably will poke yourself a few times like I have done. So I have mine sorted on this card because Mill Hill kits just give you thread that isn't sorted, so you sort of have to take a little time before you get started to sort it, and I usually just like to put it on a card, but it's not really necessary. I can't do this with this camera in my face. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a strand of this out, like so, and let's put that to the side. Okay, now here's a tricky thing about threading this beading needle. If you look, I don't know if this is in focus or not, but that eye on that needle is so tiny that it is possible to get 2 strands through and do a loop start, but it's easier just to get 1 strand through and then just fold it over. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just put 1 strand. They actually recommend doing that. Bear with me while I get it through. Okay, and I don't have scissors down here I usually like to cut it and get a nice let's try this. All right, so what I mean by folded over is you just pull 1 strand. I don't know if I'm in this green or not, but pull 1 strand and then just fold it over like that so that the other ends are even with each other. Now, you obviously can't do the loop start method with this, but believe me, it's worth it to not spend the time to try to get 2 strands through that eye and to just anchor it on the back. Okay, so what I do is I just figure out where I'm going to go for my bead, and I believe that these beads are going to go right above the beak here, so I know I'm going to be coming up right about there. So I usually stick my needle in just because then I know where to anchor it. So, okay, about right there. Now I'm just going to slide it under a few stitches, and it's very, very sharp. And this is the perforated paper. It's very bendable, so you can just bend it out of the way. So pull it through. Now I did not need a piece of thread this long. I should have thought about that. I pull it to about there, and then what I do is I just like to take 1 more little anchor stitch right there, because you're going to kind of tug to get that first, to get the bead to stay. So I just take it and just do a little anchor stitch right there, just like that. Okay, now I need to look at my pattern to see where I'm going to come up. But I believe, now, if anybody's ever worked with perforated paper before, you know that when you stick your needle up and you go to let go of it to reach over here, it just falls through because the holes are big. So what I do is when I come up, I just have my finger underneath here. I just hold the needle right there, and then it stays in place so that I could reach around and grab it. Okay, let me look at my pattern because I need to make sure I'm putting the bead in the right spot. Yes, I'm just going to go 1 right on top there. Okay, let me make sure I'm in the screen because my camera's upside down here. Let's see, where are we at? Bear with me here. Okay, about right there. Okay, so what you're going to do, you're going to come up. So I already came up right there. You're going to reach over to your bead and just put 1 on. Slide 1 on the needle. And then you right down. These are being anchored with a half cross stitch. So you just pull it just like that, give it a little tug, and then I just kind of hold the thread back there. And there's your first bead. It's really simple. Then you're going to go up to the next one. Grab one of the beads, pull it through. Now, these, I used a full cross stitch because that's what it called for, and you can tell they're not angled. They're kind of sitting straight up and down, and I'll show you how to do one of those. But right now, these are calling for half cross stitch because they want there to be an angle, sort of a slant this way for the beads. So now, sometimes when I was at my local needle workshop, the gal there who has a whole bunch of these on display, she said every once in a while, just to keep the beads nice and sturdy, if you just kind of go around the back and just do kind of an anchor stitch. Like that every so often to just kind of keep those beads nice and snug and in place. It's not 100% necessary, but she said she likes to do that. Okay. Wow, I can't really find the hole. There we go. Okay, we'll do a few more of those. Get the bead on there. Coming along nicely. Let me make sure we're still in the screen here. Oh, darn, I probably have been over too far. Okay. Okay, anyway, so look at my pattern. 2 there and then 3 on the tip. Okay, so we're going to go up right here. Take a bead, just like that. Put it on. Pull it snug. Just like that, and I think we just need one more to call it good. Once again, you know the needle's going to fall through, so I just take my finger, I hold it, and you'll get in the habit of doing that. It's kind of tricky at first because you're like, wow, my needle keeps falling through, such pain. Take it just like that. Make sure they're all laying nice and you pull it kind of snug, and I think that looks good, so I'm going to turn it over while keeping it snug. And I think I'm just going to take one more little anchor stitch right here, like that, before I take it and run it under. And these, I'm telling you, these little beading needles are so sharp, they'll pierce anything, so be careful. And I don't have my scissors with me, but you will clip that off right there. And that is pretty much, make sure we're in the screen here, that is pretty much all there is to it. It is really, really quite simple. I am going to go pause for a second, get my scissors, trim that off, and then I'm going to move to a different area that has a bead that you put on with full cross stitches, and we'll go through that. Okay. We're back now, and I'm going to show you how to apply a bead with a full cross stitch instead of the half cross stitch. So while I was on pause, I went and I trimmed my thread, finished it off, went ahead and threaded my needle again with black thread because that's what the color I'm going to need for the next color bead. So I've decided to do the petite periwinkle bead right here. That's the symbol. It calls for 2 strands of black floss and a full cross stitch to attach. So let's do that. That's a little bit more time consuming to do the full cross stitch, obviously. Okay, so where I'm going to do it is I need 3 beads here, 3 here, and 3 here. So we'll go ahead and just start, let's see. I'll work backwards. Okay, so this is where I need to anchor it. needle through there. Oops, pulled it too far. As you notice, I'm using a shorter strand of thread this time because I really didn't need that long one last time. Okay, do that. And like I did before, I'm going to just take one anchor stitch around a sturdy stitch that's nearby. Come down. Go ahead and come up, and now I'll give you a close-up of how I just grab one of these. Sometimes you'll notice too that the beads are... All right, I'm back, guys. My other phone died and ran out of space, and my old phone, so I'm using my other phone, but realized that I did all this beading and it wasn't even recording. So back to where I think the other one ended is I was showing you an up close, and I'm going to keep looking to make sure that this is working. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that, you know, sometimes these beads have different shapes and sizes to them, so, you know, just when you grab one, make sure you pick one that looks sort of uniform. You know, it'll give you a better result at the end, I think. So that being said, after I realized you didn't watch me do all 6 of these beads, we'll go ahead and do 3 more in this color because there are still 3 that need to be done. I'm not quite sure you even saw me do 1, so I'm going to just, I anchor the thread like you do with the half cross stitch. Go ahead and come up where you want the bead to be. And I think, yeah, I also cut out me talking about the thread to use. So Mill Hill calls for a strand of black thread with this because of the surrounding thread. The surrounding stitches are black. So now I've only stitched on Mill Hill kits before. I haven't done anything else. My my Nora Corbett design that I'm working on right now, Gigi, she's going to need to be beaded as soon as I'm done stitching, and that will be the first time I've beaded on something that's not a Mill Hill kit. So I believe that when you do the beading on those other projects, you can choose to either use floss that matches the surrounding stitches, or you can use floss that matches the bead, or you can use like a nylon thread, a see-through, invisible thread. I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to give any advice in that manner because, like I said, the only thing I've done is Mill Hill stitches, and if it tells me to use black thread, then I'm going to do it because I'm a rules follower most of the time, especially when I'm doing something that I haven't done before, you know. So yes, we're going to stick with black because the surrounding stitches are black, so that's what it calls for. All right, let me make sure we're in the screen here. Okay, that's where I need to be. So you come up and go ahead and grab one of these tiny little blue beads. Okay. Oh, and I just lost it. Okay. Gotta watch you don't lose it. So you're gonna go down and just do your half cross stitch like you normally would. Give it a little tug. Then you're gonna come up like you're gonna finish your cross stitch. Come up the bottom hole or the top, however, if you work top to bottom, I work bottom to top. Then you're going to go through, you want to go through the bead again. So you're going to come from the bottom of the bead. See how it wants to have a slant this way? You want to grab it from the hole in the bottom, and then you got to bend it so that you don't grab that bead right above it. Get your needle, pull it through, and then finish the last part of your cross stitch by going down the hole, in my case, the top left hole. And there you go. And you can see from the beads that I've done so far that they lay with a more straight up and down look to them. Okay, and it's just that easy. Then you go take the next one, bring it up. I'm holding the needle so it doesn't fall through. Grab it with this top hand. You could use this finger to hold it or the top one. Okay, go to your little beading mat, grab a nice uniform looking bead. Now, I just usually put it on the end there. I mean, you like you saw, sometimes it falls off, so you can just maybe tuck it back into your finger there so it doesn't fall off. Go ahead. Careful you don't get a little knot in your thread. I don't have my thread heaven nearby or I'd be using it right now. Come up the bottom hole. Go through the bead. And then come down the top hole like such. Give it a little tug, and we have one more bead in this color to do. So I'll go ahead and finish that off. Pull it. It did get cut off when I explained that after doing 3 beads, after these 3, I took a little anchor stitch. After doing those 3, I took another anchor stitch, and I will take another anchor stitch after doing these 3 before I finish off my thread. So you got that. Come up the bottom. Like that. Pull it, make sure it's laying nice. The edges of this perforated paper snag on everything. Takes some getting used to. A lot of times what will happen is when you're stitching mill hill, this bottom corner will just always catch the thread, you know, and you always have to do that. So I think some people take it and just kind of, you can smooth it off a little bit like that, kind of round the edge a little bit, just to get rid of some of those so that it's not, you know, see how I made it a little bit smoother? I mean, or you can put a little piece of tape on there too. I don't know. I find it just, you get in the habit of just stitching so that you avoid that corner. I don't know, it's just something you have to get used to. Okay, so there we go. Now, I'm going to turn it over. Find a nice sturdy stitch nearby. Maybe right there. Take a little anchor stitch, give it a little tug. And finish it off like so. Take your scissors and clip it. And push them with your fingernail, make them lay nice. And that is all there is to beading. So I think what I'm going to do is finish this. I'm going to go ahead and finish doing the beading on this project, and I'm going to maybe just tack on the end of this video how I finish it with some felt in the back, which is pretty easy to do, and you can turn it into a refrigerator magnet or a Christmas ornament, or an ornament, or whatever you want to turn it into. But that is about it. So if you have any questions or anything, or if you do something a little bit differently than I do, maybe, I mean, I'm always willing to learn a new trick. If you find that something I was doing, there could be an easier way, yes, please let me know. I think almost all, if not all, where is it at, of the Mill Hill kits come with a little treasure of some sort. And this one just happens to be, it's in there somewhere. You always have one fun larger bead to put on at the end. And this one is a bee, if you can see this cute little, on your screen, the screen here, yes, see that? Cute little bee. And it shows you how to attach it depending on the type of bead that it is. But in this case, maybe I should have get back on the show, but this one, it actually shows that you just take some black thread and go across the top, just in it, attach it like a little button. So yeah, it's actually cute, really cute and easy. And then I'll go over how to trim real close to the edge too, and how to attach some felt on the back. Okay, hi guys, I'm back again. It's now the next day, and I improved my lighting a little bit, so we'll see if our focus works a little bit better today, because it just seems like it was having a trouble with that yesterday. So anyway, I have a little setup here to show you a finish this here is a finish that I did a while ago, and it's kind of what I was going to show you how I did today. So this is a S'mores Mill Hill 4206, and it's called S'mores, and it's just absolutely adorable, and made me hungry for s'mores the whole time I was stitching this, because the colors just look like graham crackers and chocolate and marshmallow and yum. Anyway, that being said, what I was going to show you how to do today is back this with felt, just inexpensive felt. Now this one, you'll notice that right here you can see some of the glue came through. It's because I went a little overboard on the glue. So I learned that, you know, more is not always better in that case, because especially if you use inexpensive felt, which is exactly what I did use for this. I think this one might be a little bit higher quality here, a little bit thicker. You know, you can get some thicker felt or thinner. But anyway, I had a lot of glue on here and I was pushing it, and then it soaked through, and I thought that it would not show when it dried, but it did. But if you can see, this is really stiff. It ended up with a real stiff, nice feel to it, so very durable. And I went ahead and put a little hook in it so that you can hang it on your Christmas tree. You can put a little Christmas tree hanger and hang it on the tree. So I thought was a really nice way to finish it, and I thought I would just show you how to do that. It's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory, but you know, kind of like me, I like to watch people do stuff like this, because sometimes you just never know. You might learn a little tip or see a little tip on how to do something. So that being said, this one finished really nicely with this hook, because as you can see, this is a pretty solid design. I'm thinking I might have a little bit of trouble doing that with the mallard that I finished. So it's going to be a little tricky. We're going to have to see how that goes, but you can just go along for the ride, and we'll see if it turns out being too much of a disaster. Well, this will never get published and you won't be seeing it anyway. So, okay, so a few of the supplies that I'm going to need is, this is what I had on hand. It's Aleene's tacky glue, but I happen to have the turbo. That is not necessary. As a matter of fact, I'd prefer not to use it, but it's all I have. And as a matter of fact, this is a rather old bottle, and I think the lid has been left off of it a few times for my kids. They don't put the lid on, and then I find it a couple hours later, so it's kind of thick. So I have a little cup here that's just got a drop of water in it, because I'm going to water this down just a little bit, but it's not necessary. Actually, if you get the regular Aleene's tacky glue, it's purple and white, and it's not turbo, because you do not need the turbo for this. But like I said, for this purpose, it's all I had on hand. So I am going to water it down a little bit with some water, and that might affect the drying time, so we'll have to see. But I just get these cheap at the dollar store. You can buy just a whole bundle of these cheap paintbrushes, and they come in handy for all kinds of stuff, because they're sort of disposable, one-use things, but I use them actually quite a bit. So I got that. This is the magnet that came with the Mill Hill. This is a sharp pair of scissors, because that's what I'm going to be using to cut the perforated paper, and then this is the felt. Now, I would have liked to have used maybe a more matching color. I do have more of this, but I don't know. It was kind of thin. I mean, it's a pretty thin piece of felt. I mean, I think this is too. This just looked a little bit thicker, and I thought maybe it would give it a better finish. So, okay. Anyway, that's kind of the finish that we're going for. So I'm going to put that off to the side, because we don't need that one anymore. And this is my mallard. I finished doing the beading last night. It didn't take long at all. I did have a little bit of issue with I had never done the bugle beads before. So that was a bit of a challenge. Certainly not hard, but you know, I kind of had to lay them down, because I wasn't quite sure, you know, which hole to come up, you know, because I didn't know. They seem to be a little bit slightly different in size. But you know, I played around with it, and it actually called to do this back stitching in just one strand, but I went ahead and used two, because I thought the thicker stems looked a little bit better. The bead was no problem at all to put on. I just wrapped the black thread around it, but I don't know. Hopefully this is in focus and you can just see how sparkly. Let me peek under a little bit and see how sparkly. I'll try to get a close-up. It is so sparkly. I just love these things. So, boy, and I'll tell you, I came very close at this top edge here. Even though I did center my design, you can see I barely made it very close to the edge up there. So, okay, I don't know, I think there's anything else I wanted to say about it. yes, so we'll just get to clipping. Okay, so when I clip these designs, so I'm going to use these scissors. These are really sharp scissors, but, oh, and I wanted to make a mention too about this glue. This is not acid-free, and if that's important to you, you can probably find some other glue that's acid-free. I'm going to use this because, you know, I have used Aleene's tacky glue for years and years and years for craft projects, and it's kind of a bummer that it's not acid-free. So, okay, side note. Now, speaking of that, what reminded me of that is the kind of scissors that you want to use. This is perforated paper, and everybody knows that paper is really not good for scissors because it can dull them. So let me make sure I'm still recording before. Once you get burned by that. Okay, still recording. Okay. All right, so, okay, let me finish my sentence here. If you really want to use a pair of scissors that, you know, you have dedicated for maybe your paper scissors, that's fine. And you can do that maybe to get a rough outline for this. But I find that having a good pair of sharp, pointy scissors so that you can get really close here all around all these little stitches helps. I'm going to just get started with that. Now, what you want to do with these, and I really hope you can see this, is you don't want to cut into the hole that the same hole that the stitch is coming out of. So really, that's what you have to watch out for with this. So what you're going to do is you're just going to cut through the holes, through the holes of the, you know, next stitch over. You know, kind of hard to explain, but what I like to do is just start clipping. Now, if you cut right through the middle of the holes, let me show you. If you cut through like right here, let me cut this off and give you an example. Okay, now see, I cut through those holes right there. I sure hope you can see this. But do you see, I didn't get very smooth, and so what happens is you've got all these little jaggedies here, you know, and you don't really want that. So what I would do is just really trim a little bit closer, okay? And you want to get it so that, okay, see how much smoother I made that edge? But I did not cut into the same hole that the stitches are. That bead is looking kind of wonky there. So that's kind of what you want to do. And you just ever so take your time with this because, you know, you don't want to mess up. Not the end of the world if you do, but okay, so you're going to get around a corner here. So you don't want to cut into that hole that last stitch is in. So you want to cut close to it. So as you can see, just getting real close to the edge. And just take your time, and these scissors cut, you know, right through it pretty easily. Now, every time you get to a corner, you're going to have to decide, okay, where am I going to cut? So, cut into here, that hole around the corner. Okay, I'm going to go to that hole there. So, see how I'm kind of sort of taking my time with it and making it nice and smooth around the edge. And you're just going to cut, you know, into each hole. Now this is going to be sort of tedious watching me do this for the whole thing, but I just wanted to get, you know, around some of the corners so that you can see how every time you get to a corner you kind of have to make a judgment. Okay, which hole do I want to clip into? You can always go back and smooth them out a little bit. You know, you don't have to get it perfect the first time around. So it's more important if you want to just do maybe a quick cut, you know, just getting it. You see how these little jaggeds right here, you know, I can go back and smooth those later, but right now, this first time around, I just want to make sure that I'm cutting it in the holes. Sometimes it helps to get rid of this excess here, so let me do that. Okay, now I don't want to go into that hole, because you can see, so you can do, sometimes you can go like this, and then come back and clip that little corner like that. And then, you know, keep clipping off your excess like that. Okay, so, can you kind of see how the edges are looking? They can be smoothed a little bit. You can go back when you're all done and just smooth those edges. And then the long run, you know, you are going to have felt up against that there, so it's not going to be that big of a deal if you don't get those smooth. But the most important thing is to not clip into the hole that the stitches are in. Okay, so just keep working, you know, snipping this way, snipping this way, snipping this way. Now this is going to be a challenge going around here because I'm not really sure. Yeah, I mean, some of this is just going to have to be left in the middle. I mean, you probably could cut a little hole out of this spot right here, but I think I'm just going to leave that, you know, because it's just, then it's just going to have felt showing through there. So I think I'm going to leave that. So anyway, you just go around, all around these tiny little things, and it's quite tedious. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you how to apply the felt. Okay, I'm just about finishing up this very last bit. Thought I'd have you watch me do it. Finish up. So when you get to a corner like this, you can actually go at an angle through the holes. And smooth up some of these edges. I can't stress how much easier this job is with a nice pair of sharp scissors. Even if you have to buy a pair just to kind of dedicate to this, it's really worth it because sometimes you just need to get in. If you look, I like to round my edges just ever so slightly, like clipping off those little corners, and you just can't do that with a big fat pair of scissors because you want to be real careful. And smooth this off right here. And I think that's probably good. Don't want to get too close there. So yeah, I go through, I kind of clipped off, as you can see, the little corners. Yeah, this doesn't look all great. It was kind of tricky going around these beads here, but they'll look fine. You know, just want to make sure you look at all your edges, and if they all look nice, then you're ready to do the felt. So we'll go ahead and move on to that part. Let me clean up some of this mess I got going here. So this felt I have, you can just, like I said, buy it at in sheets at the craft store. This one seemed a little bit thicker. I might have paid just a tad more, but these are just really, you know, 25 cents, 35 cents or something a sheet. They're really not that much, but this one looked a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go with this. So basically what you have to do, this part's pretty easy. You just get some of your glue. I got a little cup. I just rip the top off of it there and make a little, and you don't need much. Like I said, I added a little bit of water. That's probably too much, but I'm going to mix it with water. So get one of these, and you don't want to make it really too runny, but this turbo tacky glue, it's thicker anyway than the regular tacky glue, so it just doesn't need to be that thick. I find it spreads a little bit better. So mix that really well. Now, you know, I might need a little more because personally I like to coat the whole back. Although because this is going to have a lot of these holes showing through, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to deal with that part up there where the cattails are. You know, I have a feeling that this glue doesn't dry clear. It might be beneficial to use glue that dries clear, but I hadn't actually thought about that until just this moment. I don't know if the regular Aleene's dries clear or not. Okay, so what you do is you just start painting on, getting close to the edge, but not, I wouldn't go all the way to the edge. See, I'm putting it on somewhat thin, and you have a little time to work with this glue. You know, it's the whole idea of it. It's tacky right off the bat, but I do think it is quick drying, so it's not going to give you something like, you know, you don't have to work real fast with it, but somewhat fast. So, you see how I'm getting close to the edges there? The middle is not quite as important to get it completely full, so if you want to just work on getting some on the edges, you can fill in the middle afterwards. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about the cattails. Because I want it to be certainly where all the stitches are. Oop, now see, I probably didn't want to put any on those empty holes there. We'll have to see how it turns out. Maybe what I'll do is just put a thin amount here. And actually that might pose a problem, putting our little ornament mount hook. I hadn't actually thought about that. Hope it doesn't. You can tell I'm really prepared for these videos, huh? That's okay. I think it's kind of funner to watch because you kind of see somebody going through the process of, yeah, okay, this works, this doesn't work. So as you can see, I'm trying not to be real generous where just the holes are. Probably would have been beneficial to have a toothpick around. So this is, oh, I don't think I mentioned it. You can get these in the jewelry department. This one I cut down to size. You can buy like a pack of like 25 of them. They're just for making jewelry, and I happen to have some on hand. So let's see. I'm going to kind of stick that right there. I don't really want it to show through the holes. Okay. I want to get it kind of lined up there, and I think what I might do, now what I did last time is I put a whole dab of glue there and then it soaked through, but you do want to make sure that that has some glue on it. Okay. And now just take it. Oops. Oh, okay. It didn't work. Let's do it this way. It would be very beneficial to have a toothpick on hand because, okay, now I'm going to get glue on my scissors, but I want to push that so that that doesn't show through the holes. I didn't have that problem with my last one because the whole thing was covered with stitches. Okay. Push down on that. Hope I have enough glue. We shall see. If not, you can go in afterwards and maybe brush some up underneath it. But I'm going to go ahead and let that dry now. It doesn't need to dry for 24 hours. I mean, what does it say on here? It says quick drying. So I'm going to give this probably just a couple. Oh, it says dries clear. Dries clear and flexible. So that's perfect. That's what we want. So I'm going to let that dry for a little bit and see if we need to tack some more under there. And then we'll just trim away some of the felt. All right, we're back. And let's see how our project has dried. Okay, feels good. Definitely feels workable. That feels snug. Okay, now some of these edges didn't get enough glue, but I'm gonna just add a little more after we cut it out, but I think it's okay to go ahead and start cutting this little guy out. So I'm using the same scissors, and you do just the same thing you did before. Just trim it right up to the edge like this. You can actually, let's kind of do a rough cut around here. Okay, so I got most of it done. I kind of personally like even to go kind of at an angle so that you don't really see much of the felt from the front, if any at all. So I'm kind of just going back and kind of angling my scissors. It's almost like you're kind of beveling it toward the back. And that's just personal preference. You can tidy this up to your liking. I don't really like to see much of the fuzz on mine, so just kind of all right. I think that's probably good enough. This part I don't really like seeing that. Sometimes you have to turn it over. I think for the most part, okay, scissors aren't cutting that. There we go. Okay, yeah, like I said, you can kind of fiddle with that forever and ever until you get it to your liking. Okay, his beak is too square for my taste. Okay. All right, now this is the point at which you can take a toothpick and see if there's any edges coming off. Oh, I left my brush upstairs. I don't need my brush. This is what we'll do. I'm just going to put a little glue. And just go around the edges where some of this didn't get stuck real well. Put a little glue. That all feels good. There's a little piece right there. Put a little bit. This probably could have been avoided if I would have brushed it up a little bit closer to the edge. I couldn't remember if I was trying to avoid those edges because I thought this dried white, but now that I know it dries clear, I guess I really should have just kind of brought it all the way over to the edge. I'm going to put a little bit extra right there, where that little guy is. And just keep, I'll be at this all day trying to get these fuzzies out of here. I don't like, okay. All right. So those just need to dry just a little bit on the tips, but I'm not going to come back with that. This is basically how it looks on the back. And this, I'm not going to pull at it. I'm not going to pull on it right now just because I do want to let this dry a little longer. I would have liked to have that little metal bar kind of hiding behind there a little bit because you can kind of see it, but that's okay. Most of them, I think you can hide that a little bit better than this one. This just happens to be having to have some open stitches up on the top. But when this dries, I mean, it is a little bit flexible now. The other one, this one, when it dried completely, it's really stiff. I mean, it's like hardly bendable at all. I mean, and this thing isn't going anywhere. I can tug on that tight. So basically, that is how they look when they're finished. And I just think it's adorable. I wanted to talk about the magnet that comes with these kits. It's not a super strong magnet, so it's certainly not a magnet that's going to be strong enough to use as a needle minder, but it's perfect for a refrigerator magnet. So I was just going to mention that if you didn't want to finish it with this hook or something similar to that, because you aren't going to hang it, you're going to use it as a refrigerator magnet, it's very simple. When you're done, you just take a little bit of this glue. I don't really think it needs anything stronger than that. I mean, you can use some of that E6000, but that stuff is really strong smelling, and I just don't think it's necessary if you're just going to have this hanging on your refrigerator. So all you really need to do is put a dab of glue on there and glue that right to the back, and there you have yourself a refrigerator magnet. So that's another option too for finishing this up. And I just thought I'd mention that because, like I said, the kit does come with one of those magnets. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you have been inspired to start one of these on your own. And that's all for now. Talk to you later. Bye.